All right, welcome to Bet's Business Book Club, June edition, where we did read Barking Up the Wrong Tree by Eric Barker.
Pun intended.
I think it is intended. Well, I read on something, he's got a blog, and yeah, clever guy. I have to say, love this book. Like, if you don't want to read all of the book club books, grab this one, because he touches on, I think, like every book we have read. There's books he talks about that I've read, not part of the business club. Yeah, it was just so good. Anybody got anything specific they want to share? I unfortunately did not have all my tabs while I was reading it, so I only have like the first chapter tab, but I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I really, I wrote something. I like how it talked about how your environment makes you. Kind of like that quote, if you teach a fish how to walk, they'll be terrible, but they're really good swimmers, you know? So I just think it's interesting that your environment really does make you.
I mean, yeah. You know, when we lived in Boston and it was cold and dark and terrible, everybody's cold and dark and terrible. Like, it's just a reflection. Like, you're really miserable. And then, you know, the weather sucks. The environment sucks. And then it's not like you're a sunny, bubbly person, because you're like, oh, I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm whatever, it's dark out at 3:00. Like, ugh, it's terrible. So yeah, I believe it.
I think one of the more interesting things to me is, you know, one of the problems is we all think we're normal, right? And we only have a sample size of one brain that we all operate in. So we all
Do we think we're normal? I think that's a you thing, Alex. I never think I'm normal.
But you might say it that way, but you still address things as though,
like,
you
your
know,
perspective
is the normal, and everyone is going to, you know, operate and think the way you are. Mm. And I think what's interesting with this is, look, statistics are, you know, studies are going to show statistics, and the fact that something works for 80% of the people doesn't, or 95, even works for 95% of the people. There's lots of things in this world, so you're going to fall into that other 5% on some of them, but so many cliches have built up over the years, and usually they are based on reality. Like, they're not totally wrong, but they might only be right in a set of circumstances that doesn't exist anymore. Mm. And there's also a lot of cliches and other things that have been kind of adopted over time. They aren't really based on truth. They're based more aspirational. Mm. Like the whole nice guy, jerk, getter, like all of that. Like, I thought that was really, you know, we tell kids that, you know, to do the right thing and it works out, you know, good will always beat evil, not because it's real, but we want to live in a world where it's real. And the alternative is actually a world of psychopaths. So it's, you know, it's one of those, what's good for the one is not good for the many. There's some Latin phrase for it, but I thought there was a lot of like dealing with that I thought was really interesting. And I always love when they actually look at the science instead of just kind of what they think should be. Or I enjoy the books that, you know, show someone's personal perspective and this is why it worked for me. But, you know, like, remember when Lean In was the big craze, the one from Facebook, and before that,
I never even read it. I'm like, whatever, it's garbage, whatever it is.
Right. But how many women have achieved that level of success in this country? 10?
Of a percent. Like, yeah, very, very few.
Like her, Martha Stewart, Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm kind of that. That's what I've got for women that have hit that pinnacle of business.
I'm sure there's the lady from eBay, Meg.
The woman who started Spanx. Like, there's definitely successful women entrepreneurs that are huge.
Sure.
But they're all so 4 standard deviations out of norm that their memoirs are fantastic, but often not actionable.
Right. They're outliers.
Right.
You can't apply the outlier concept to everyone.
Right, because if I were to look at Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and read their stories, I would conclude the secret to life is drop out of Harvard.
Right.
And
I think you have to get in first and then drop out. That's the hard part.
We know plenty of people that, you know, went to MIT or Harvard and didn't finish. And how many of them are Zuckerberg or Gates? How many of them just developed drug problems?
I did meet Mark Zuckerberg, at a party one time in college that I know one.
Right. But again,
if that happened.
right. But again, like these aren't, you can't interpret from, look at this crazy life I led.
Right.
You know, and I've liked a lot more. There's a lot more of, you know, most business success takes decades. You know, these kind of overnight successes like a Facebook or they're once in a generation success stories.
Right.
Like literally there's two of them. You know, one to find the PC era, one to find, you know, the social media area. You want to throw Amazon for the e-commerce era in.
Well, are you ignoring Steve Jobs?
Yes, intentionally.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. I mean, if you look at that.
He didn't drop out of Harvard, so I don't know if he fits the category.
No, he dropped out of a different school. Right. Was it Rice? He didn't finish? But either way, the number of usually successful college dropouts is a very small number.
Yeah.
But if you were to read their stories, you'd absolutely hear. And Y Combinator, Peter Thiel is always pushing people, drop out of college and go join my thing. Well, that's fantastic. He's got alumni all over the place. None of them have hit the Zuckerberg gate success. He doesn't have no successes under his, but that's really not the path to success. But it makes for a great story, those outliers.
Right.
You know, I flipped the coin 12 times in a row and came up heads is a much better story than, ooh, I hit heads 7 out of 12 times and killed it. Like that's not, you know, that's not exciting. Right, but the crazy outlier stories are absolutely the ones that we all want to hear, but that's not useful.
But I think, like, sort of a tangent to that, I think what made this book so great was his storytelling, the illustrative way that he would go down each path and show you, like, yes, this is right. You should drop out of college. Yes, this is right. You should stay in college. It was just very fascinating how he kind of wove everything together and applied the science, because he quotes all kinds of studies and books and lots of research, which I love. I hate when it's like, oh, this is my personal view on how to do everything fantastic, because most of those books suck. But I thought it was very interesting. I totally just lost my train of thought. All right, somebody else say something. It was interesting. I like the book, but yeah.
No, definitely the, you know, going to the literature and things like that. But I think one of the other things that is often missed, that I think is why it's really good that you get both the qualitative and the quantitatives here, is, you know, what is it? We're more fearful, we're more loss averse than we are interested in success. So one of the challenges when you look at these things is, you know, life's not a Monte Carlo sim. You only play it out once. Right. So, you know, the outlier scenario generally isn't the good one.
Right.
Right. And we're
not safe.
You know, but the reason we have a bias towards safety is that N equals 1 lifespan and the loss aversion, that, you know, playing it safe in a nice life is a certainly safer way to play than rolling the dice. And, you know, one guy comes up Bill Gates, the other, you know, 999 of them, you know, show up divorced with a heroin problem.
Lots of debt.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously, you look at the Steve Jobs thing. Did he successfully build Apple in his second coming? Absolutely. What tech exec would swap places with his life ever?
Yeah. No.
Right. Like, you know, Steve Wozniak's life looks fantastic. You know, didn't get the success of his partner, but he's been playing with toys and being a millionaire his entire life and loved by his community. So
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Right. Steve Wozniak's had way more fun. He might not have the yacht, but he's still alive and he's had way more fun.
Yeah.
Something that I really like, though, when you talked about being an introvert versus an extrovert, I thought that was so interesting, because, like, I am a self-identified introvert, and whenever I say that, people are like, "No, you're so friendly," and blah blah blah. And it's not that. I mean, I'm not really that friendly. I just smile a lot. But like, okay, so if I go to like a networking thing or even like a social thing, I am so exhausted, just drains all of my energy to have to interact with people that much for that long, I need to then like go take a nap or something, like drink a lot of espresso. Alex, on the other hand, loves the energy. There's a party, great. Where's the after party? Where's the after party? And if there isn't one, we will make one.
Guilty.
So I thought that was an interesting discussion on the introvert extrovert, and that none of us are really fully anything.
Either. I mean, what was he saying? That introverts do better in Silicon Valley and extroverts do better leading people?
Yeah,
Like,
maybe.
Running things?
Well, it kind of is related though to the whole thing about the valedictorians, which I took like a punch in the throat. Like, and he's not wrong, but it's just really upsetting to really see someone tell you, like, everything you did when you were in your formative years to be that star student and to be the valedictorian, and everyone pat you on the head, like, aren't you great? Here's your gold star. Not that it's not helpful. Like, yeah, like learning stuff is good and all, but let's be honest, I have not changed the world. At Hochberger, CPA, CGMA, like, we make some people's lives better, hopefully, especially if we can give them a tax refund or help them with, like, getting out of trouble. But it's not revolutionary. Like, I'm not that Harvard dropout that created a technology phenomenon, even though it was valedictorian.
I think that's an unfair standard, though, because what do we have? 3,000 high school valedictorians graduate every year. I don't know how many high schools are in the country, but it's thousands, right? So if we double that to add the salutatorians, let's just, expand it, over a 20-year span, you're talking, 6 figures worth of people that aren't going to all be that kind of outliers.
Mm-hmm.
1 in a million people.
Apparently there are 24,000 high schools in the United States.
My bad. Maybe it was 3,000 was Florida, that I remember at some point.
Yeah.
So 24,000. So you're talking 48,000 valedictorians and salutatorians.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people every year.
Yeah. So we're not that special. You feel special at the time.
But even if you took all the valedictorians, you could fill the entire class of every one of the top 25 colleges.
Right.
And they're not everyone is going to be that rock star.
Yeah.
The 1 in a million is only 330 people. This is way more than 1 in a million people are valedictorians.
Oh, I'm not special. Is that what you're telling me?
You are special.
You're very special. This is how we remember Beth's actually a millennial.
I am not. I'm not a millennial. I am right on the border, and I identify as Gen X. Anyway, so I did not appreciate his very right, correct, honest, true discussion of valedictorians. That was my first thing, but it did get me very emotionally invested in the book, which was probably why I liked it so much, because it made me a little bit angry. Like, I remember getting angry reading this. I was like, Argh!
But I think your introvert extrovert, it's one of the better things that I think really needs more coverage in all the business books, because we are so defined by really that Hollywood trope. And part of that Hollywood trope is that the introvert is a defective personality type. And it's not. How many romantic comedies have followed the storyline of the introverted girl who becomes the extrovert life of the party and is celebrated at the end? Like, she overcame adversity of her introversion, and that's not adversity. But I thought one of the more interesting things that was going on over the last year is you take a look at something like Clubhouse, and the tech world was really talking a lot about how this past year, the technology, why did you see such a different reaction? If you were an introvert, this past year was fine. Like, your reduced social functions were reduced somewhat, but not the way it was devastating to extroverts.
Okay, that is probably fair, but you have to be, I think, on the extreme end of introvert to have not had
but that extreme end of introvert made up a huge disproportionate number of Google and Facebook's programming force.
That I would believe.
So to them, it was very easy. 538 had a great thing on this and was talking about one of the fallacies we had in the whole COVID situation is ignoring the fact that for most people, human interaction is an essential activity, and treating everyone as evil and vile for wanting that was part of why people just threw up their hands.
Right.
Like we had leadership who did not take into account that life is full of trade-offs and just decided to take an absolutism, and the people response to an absolutism is to say go fuck yourself, not to partially comply. Right, like that so
Or half a
if you
mask.
right, but if you tell everyone it's all or nothing, you end up with the reaction you got of, well, some people are going to say all, and some people are going to say nothing.
Right.
And the it best things, if you want to talk about like the environmental and health benefits of veganism, right?
Mhm.
What percentage of people will actually be vegan?
Very small.
0.1%. What percentage of people could be convinced to go and have 2 vegetarian meals a week and feel better for it?
Absolutely.
If you got 200 million people to cut meat out of 2 meals a week, what cuts back on meat consumption? More of that, or the 0.1% that goes vegan?
True.
Yeah.
Right? Like partial solutions in large numbers work. That was the whole concept of the mask. No one thought you were actually stopping anything with a mask that at best we thought had a 30% efficacy.
All right.
But if you spread it across 300
Bring
million,
back to the book,
anyway,
Alex. I'm like, this otherwise goes down
random
a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I really loved the part where he talked about, and I think it was near the introvert extrovert, flattery gets you everywhere. Right. And it's one of those cliches that apparently is true. And even if it's obvious, and you know what, there have been times, and there's one time I can remember in particular at Bloomingdale's, some salesperson came over, said something very flattering to me. I knew they're a salesperson. I knew they were trying to sell me something. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, hi. Oh, I'm looking for a new black purse. And sure enough, I bought something. So even knowing that they were doing it, that they were manipulating me, it didn't matter. It still freaking worked.
Yeah, sometimes I'll feel like bad for complimenting people because I feel like I'm trying to manipulate them, even though I'm not. Like, I'm genuinely like, you're amazing, you're admirable. And I'm like, oh, they're gonna think I'm trying to, but maybe they wouldn't even think that. Maybe that's
But
all.
guess what? Even if they do, it doesn't matter.
They're still gonna fall for it, right?
Fall for
It's
it.
not fall for it. We don't actually care about other people. We care about how other people make us feel.
That's true. Probably.
So their level of sincerity actually has no bearing on whether their flattery makes me feel good or not. So my lizard brain clearly doesn't care whether it's real or not. My lizard brain just says, does this
Right.
make me feel good or not?
Right. Lights up whatever part of your brain likes that sugar rush, the adrenaline rush, the heroin, whatever it is. What is
Dopamine?
that? Dopamine? Yeah, like serotonin, dopamine, one of those things. It must trigger something in your brain where you're like, oh, I want more of this. Even if it seems insincere. It's like, I like this. I want some more. Okay, could we like talk about how he like went into that whole basically oh my goodness, the givers versus takers. And it was such a great tie back to the Go Giver, right? Because I love that book. That was such a great book club episode. And it's like, oh, I can be a good person in business and it's fantastic and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, actually I had a discussion with my mom about this when I was like, you need to read this book. And I told her about the valedictorian thing. And she said, yeah, because the valedictorians aren't big enough jerks to be successful. And I was like, oh, but you're wrong. Because that doesn't, it's short term. You can be a jerk and get what you want in the short term, right? But in the long term, is at the top and the bottom, we're also givers. So the bottom, no, the problem was you became a martyr. You're really not a giver. You're like, oh, woe is me. I'm going to do everything for everyone, not take care of myself, which doesn't get you very far either. But at the top, you're back to the givers. So I loved how that kind of tied back to that recent book club.
Yeah.
I was very happy to see that that's a valid thing. Because it is easy to feel like everyone who's successful is a jerk. And it's just,
all very short term.
Yeah. Short term.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the common theme is finding meaning, like throughout all these books. It's always talking about like, it's not necessarily like you have to love what you do, but you have to like get people to love that you're doing it, you know, and so that way you can feel good at the end of the day. And that just seems to be a common theme.
Did anybody do any of his like exercises? I didn't do it, but I think I want to. I want to go find it. There's probably PDFs, I would assume, somewhere. I like how honest he is in the book, because there's somewhere towards the end, like he talks about scheduling. And there was that book that we read long ago, Indistractable, that talked about like time scheduling and things like that. And in here he's like, write down every hour what you're doing. If it falls into like, does it make you happy or this or that? There was like 4 categories. I don't remember off the top of my head. And he's like, you're going to be upset at what you see. And I was like, oh shit, I better do this, because I will see how much time I spend on social media and phone games and whatever else, wasting time instead of getting poop done the way I need to get it done.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of these books, it's great to read them, but if you don't do the exercise and that like self work and learn that about yourself and what you need to discover about yourself, you only get a little bit. You don't get the full effect.
Well, I will say, even if you didn't read the book, or you did read the book, you read part of it, his blog's actually really fantastic, because it's not so high volume. He's got a great one on how some of the COVID restrictions mimic depression, and a lot of the ways you can respond to it are the same ways we use behavior to treat depression. He's got things like, great one from like even just a few months ago. It's like how to be happier without really trying. Like a lot of these, and unlike a book, which requires like a serious commitment, reading a blog post is a much smaller investment of time. And there's a lot of like, what's great is he's got, I don't know, 5,000 entries on them. And you don't have to read them all. You can just click through and read the headlines and be like, no. Oh, I'm going to read that. Like read 1 out of every 3 pages. And there's 300 blog posts you could read over the next year. And it's filled with like little tidbits. So I thought that was, and they all have like links to related posts. Like you can go down a rabbit hole. It's still the internet. Sure. But it's great little like nuggets of help. And it's all got like big headings. And clearly it was written for good SEO. But it happens to also be very easy to, pay attention to what's going on.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually hadn't looked at his blog. I didn't even know there was a blog before. I don't even know where I found the recommendation for this. I need to kind of scroll back through and see some of the books that he quoted, things that I haven't read yet. What else though? And towards the end, he said like the most important thing to remember when it comes to success, alignment. Right? You can't like try to be somebody else. You can't be fake. Can't be a taker. You have to like what you're doing. You have to build an environment and structure your life around what you want and how you're going to define success. So if you think success is, I stop working at 2 p.m. and I only spend quality time with my family, well, you need to schedule out your day ahead of time to make sure you're there. Not a to-do list. I make a to-do list if I know I need to like knock things off quickly, because I'll sit there and I'll get through them. But when I look at the pad with the to-do list, it grows faster than it shrinks, right? It takes so long to get things off. But if you're very meticulous with your calendar, and he says like put working time on there. And I was like, oh my God, my calendar is just interruptions. It's all it is. I look at my calendar. I'm like, when do I have a meeting? When do I have an appointment? When do I need to go do something, be somewhere? Like, I don't structure my day to make sure I get everything done at a reasonable time. That's why I'm working at midnight. So I need to sit there and do some of that work and figure out, how do I restructure what I want? But a lot of these things also come back down to like, what do you want? And if you don't know what you want, it's hard to structure your life for success if you don't even know how you define success. I like this one blog post, The Lazy Way to an Awesome Life, 3 Secrets Backed by Research. I'm sorry, I opened the page and it's like, oh, look at that. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else? Anybody? I particularly like the story of the kid who like dropped out of Princeton to go be a Shaolin master. Not for the lesson that it gave. It was just like it's such a wacky story. I was like, that's pretty cool. Random thing to do with life.
Bet, Alex, how do you define success?
And the quote, pure K of vote, one who is happy with his lot in life. That's a wealthy man, but it works well.
Yeah. I think it's related to my stress level. I think when my stress level is lower, I'm happier in general. I don't know. I think I need to make a better definition and structure my day around it. Because part of what stresses me out, I often schedule too many things into the day. Things take at least 3 times longer than I ever think they should. And then I put myself into a situation where I'm like always behind, and that's very stressful. So I kind of create this terrible feedback loop of stress. And when I don't do that and I can like plan things better, or, when I say no, he had a whole thing about like the most productive people say no to everything. So instead, when someone's like, oh, can you, do you have time for like a quick call? And I'm like, looking at my calendar, I'm like, well, I could technically squeeze it in between these two things. I say, no, I don't have time. Sorry. I'm much happier because I'm not like trying to shoehorn everything in where there's just no room for it. So less stress.
Yeah.
And better eating.
Yeah. Interesting.
How about you, Jordan?
For me, I think that success would be balance. Really just having like a full personal life. And that's kind of something that's taken a back seat during COVID. I've just kind of, it's all work. Like, and I really have very little of a social life. And so I'm trying to like get back to it. Because I consider myself an extrovert, but since COVID, I've kind of become introverted to the point where like I don't really want to leave my house, and it's kind of scary. So I think finding success would be getting back to a balanced like activities, going out more, enjoying the world, breathing in the air, like experiencing things. And then also, I'm pretty young, so I'm still trying to schedule out my future as to what that's going to look like and what success means in that aspect. So
Yeah.
that's a whole nother ball.
Yeah, and you might have to ask yourself if you're really becoming introverted or you're becoming an unhappy extrovert, because it might not doing stuff doesn't actually make you an introvert. Accepting a depressed lot in life is not, yeah. And I'm not gonna psychoanalyze you over a Zoom window. I wouldn't psychoanalyze you in person. I don't know what I'm doing, but like I know, like I am such an extreme introvert. Like had I not lived in Florida, I probably would have killed myself this past year. Because Bet can attest, the actual 6 weeks where Florida fully participated in COVID, like I was losing my mind 2 weeks in. Like I was back at the like those first 2 weeks.
Did we do it for that long?
Sort of. I don't know. Reopening was last June, and about 6 weeks, and it was. And I went and got my haircut in Boynton Beach the week before because Palm Beach opened a week early. And had Palm Beach not entered, I was figuring out where to go for happy hour in Martin County, like 4 weeks in. Like I really couldn't handle this. And like I look back and I look at people like haven't left their house in a year, and they're introverted. They're like, I don't understand why everyone's not doing this. This is fine. And for the extroverts, they're just kind of like depressed messes, and it's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And
there's a story that he talks about. I think it was like in the summary at the end about this guy that was in this state where the medical establishment thought he was brain dead, and he was like, it's not a coma, it was some other thing where he was totally aware of everything going on. Like he said that his mom came in and said, I wish you would die because it was such a burden, like taking care of. He was in the state for like 10 years or something crazy. And then one day he kind of started to come out of it. But it's the feeling of helplessness causes so much depression. So, even just, I think the act of going through and saying like, this is what I want in my life. This is how right now I'm going to define success. And it's going to be like, I'm going to join a kickball team and I'm going to go out twice a week and blah, 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 whatever it is, because you can change it later, right? You can always change your goals, but just to feel like you have control over your own destiny is so important.
Yeah. I need to get a bike. So if anyone has a bike that's relatively affordable.
Craigslist.
get like messages now about bikes.
I have a bike for you to buy. Offer up, Craigslist. Wait, don't they have, or maybe, I don't know if they have it near you. You see every once in a while those like things where you can rent a bike.
Yes, I've done it. I've done it probably twice now, 3 times, and I enjoy it, but you only get it for like 30 minutes, and it's kind of in awkward areas. And
Gotcha.
I'm a new bike rider. I just learned how to ride a bike like 2 years ago.
What?
So
Really?
not good. Yes, really. I never learned how to ride a bike. I was,
wow.
I don't know, awkward turtle or something. But
the things you learn about people in book club.
yeah. So now I really enjoy it, but I'm not good at it. So it's always in like these busy Fort Lauderdale parks.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
So uncomfortable because I'm like trying to avoid others. I just want to go to Margate or something where there's a giant straight sidewalk. For like
yeah, definitely hop on Craigslist. Also, if you have your own bike, like you can get it like the right height for you and whatnot. Get a bike.
They're like, it's like $1,000 for a bike. I was
what?
like,
no, Craigslist.
Yeah.
So I have my brother's old bike from high school that I went and put a new seat on, a new handlebar. I spent like $150 fixing it up, and it's fun. Could I race it? No. Is it totally fine for I bike to the park and get some fresh air? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our kids' bikes, we ended up getting new ones because you couldn't actually a year ago functionally get anything on Craigslist.
Yeah.
But before that, all our kids' bikes came off Craigslist for like 20 or $30 and a $5 new tube from Walmart, and away we went.
And if it was destroyed, who cared?
Yeah, we threw it in the trash. It was usually cheaper to buy a new bike for $20 off Craigslist than $25 to replace the tires they broke.
Yeah, true. Bikes are weird
Check
like
out
that.
Craigslist.
Yeah.
I find all things on Craigslist. It's like this weird alternative universe of like weird things, bartenders and like bikes.
Yeah, it's kind of like a metaphor for the entire internet.
Yes, the internet is a big cesspool of shit.
Little diamonds.
No, oh, very little.
No diamonds.
Sorry, little
islands. Little islands of palm trees. They're just a mirage. They're not even real. Anyone got anything else?
I'm looking at bicycles for sale in the Miami Fort Lauderdale area for Jordan. It's very exciting.
Alex is very good at finding things on Craigslist.
Gear shifter. I need the shift of the gear because I don't like the crazy ones where I have nothing to push against. It freaks me out. It's not fun.
Do you like the thumb brakes or ride backwards brake?
And like the little gear shifter. I don't know what it's called.
Do you want a horn?
No, I don't.
Or a bell?
No horn needed, and I can buy a seat at Walmart. I want
streamers or no streamers on the handlebars.
Seats that just are comfortable.
Here you go, Jordan.
Pegs or none. Okay, this went really sideways. All right, I think we're done talking about barking up the wrong tree. I'm definitely gonna like read this with a much finer tooth comb or something.
Yeah, me too, honestly.
Just not right now. But I'm going camping. Maybe I'll take it with me.
Next week or next month.
Ooh, our next book, The Accidental Salesperson: How to Take Control of Your Sales Career, Earn the Respect and Income You Deserve, by Chris Little, Lytle, Little, I guess. I don't know. So what I thought was interesting about this book was that it's like, yet again, it was kind of like that last one. It was like, everyone has to sell. He's like, oh, you just got to find yourself in this position where you have to sell.
Yeah, is it going to be like that?
I don't know because I haven't read it yet.
Sell as Human meets The Accidental Salesperson.
Possibly. I don't know. He's a leader in sales training, at least in his Amazon description of the book. Filled with money generating strategies. Woohoo! Who doesn't want money? We'll see. How bad can it be? You usually learn something from, like, even if it's like meh of a book, you learn something. So
true. At the very least, you get to pat yourself on the back and say, I did that.
I actually feel, maybe this is a good place to kind of do a quick review. So it's June, right? We're halfway through the year. I have found I've gotten a lot out of the books that we read, even the ones when I haven't liked them so much. I think I've gotten a lot out of all of them. Anybody else?
Yes.
Bueller?
I
You don't have to be the valedictorian. You don't have to just say yes. But I think I'm finding that it's actually achieving its goal. I'm reading all these books. I'm definitely learning things. Hopefully I'm integrating them into my life, even if not perfectly, but
True.
hopefully it's better. All right, cool. We'll keep doing it then.
It is. You're very positive.
Trying. All right, everyone. Well, if that's it, that's it. We're done. And we'll see you in July. I don't even know what the date is. I have to find it. July something. July 8th. We might have to change that date. I think I might be in transit sometime in July. We'll see what's happening.
After America's birthday.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.